What's up, guys, and welcome back to my channel. And if you're new here, then welcome to our little corner of the internet. Today we are watching something quite dark. This video is titled Victorian Cannibalism Was Worse Than You Think. First of all, I didn't even know there was such thing as Victorian cannibalism, but it being even worse than I would think when I didn't even think it exists. Let's see what this video is about.
These days, if you're hungry, you just DoorDash a burrito and move on. But in Victorian times, well, let's just say it paid to keep an eye on the guy next to you. Yes, back then, when starvation set in, the line between roommate and ribeye got blurry. And to prove we've got the receipts, today we're taking a look at some cannibalism stories from the Victorian era. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel. After that, please leave a comment and let us know what other creepy topics you'd like to hear about. And now, it's time to meal prep. In 1845, England was determined to find the fabled Northwest Passage, a shortcut between the Atlantic and Pacific that would make the nation rich and powerful, and anyone who traveled it very, very cold. To that end, they sent forth their best and brightest. And by brightest, we mean men who thought, hey, let's explore the Arctic in wool coats and optimism. Sounded like a good idea. 2 ships set sail, carrying 128 men, under the command of Sir John Franklin, a seasoned explorer and national hero. And those ships, the HMS Erebus and the HMS Terror, were considered state-of-the-art, complete with heating, libraries, and thousands of cans of preserved meat. Long story short, by 1846, both ships were locked in ice off King William Island. Temperatures dropped to negative 48 degrees Celsius. The men's skin blistered.
This is what I mean. I honestly thought, like, I've never even thought that humans can survive in these types of, like, weathers. I don't know how cold is it wherever you guys are? In Finland, when I was, the coldest that it got was -6 degrees, and I was already like, it's cold. But in America, it gets way colder, and I could not imagine someone living in this type of weather. It's too cold.
Their gums bled from scurvy, and at one point, it got so cold that taking off a mask could rip your beard clean off. Imagine dying and waxing at the same time. Anyway, for years, Britain heard nothing. 39 rescue expeditions were sent out, but all they found were eerie traces: tin cans, snow goggles, buttons, and bones. Dozens of bones. Many of them split open for marrow, because apparently, when the food runs out, so does the pretense of civilization. By the time rescuers pieced it together, every one of the crewmen was found dead from cold, starvation, scurvy, lead poisoning, or, menu expansion. Inuit witnesses later described mutilated bodies and cooking pots filled with, well, not soup. Forensic scientists confirmed it a century later: knife marks on human bones.
A century later?
Proof that the greatest Arctic expedition in British history ended with a coworker buffet. In 1840,
Okay, but this is like not, I thought the Victorian era, as in people in general, like, if you're stranded with people and you don't have any food, I would probably not be able, or maybe I would, because humans are able of incredible things when there's a need. But, it's very hard to imagine yourself in that type of situation. But that kind of makes sense, Like, that's not like, oh, it's worse than you think, because, that kind of makes sense. I mean, it's definitely something. It's definitely something unexpected, but it kind of makes sense in that situation. It's not like something that I would not expect, But okay.
87 pioneers, including the Donner family, set out from Illinois for California. They had wagons. They had hope. They had absolutely no idea what was coming. Everything was going fine until they took a detour called the Hastings Cutoff, a new shortcut promoted by a guy who had never actually taken it, because even then dudes refused to ask for directions. The trail was rough, slow, and involved hacking wagons through the Wasatch Mountains and slogging across the salt flats. It cost them precious weeks, burned through supplies, and put them dangerously behind schedule. By the time they reached the Sierra Nevada, it was late October, and a massive blizzard trapped them near what's now Donner Lake. And when we say trapped, we mean buried. Wagons were snowed under, livestock froze, people started dying. For 4 months, they were stranded. Some families holed up in makeshift cabins, others dug snow caves. They boiled hides into glue soup, gnawed on bones, chewed tree bark like sad beavers. Eventually, however, the food ran out, but the bodies didn't. The dead were eaten. Some accounts even claim that people were killed for meat. A small band of the strongest set out on snowshoes in a last-ditch attempt for help. 2 months later, rescuers finally reached the survivors, or what was left of them. Out of the original 87 people, just 46 had survived. Their ordeal became one of the most infamous survival stories in American history. It had everything: bad decisions, bad weather, bad trail guides, and a new cooking style.
I mean, again, it's kind of a need. It's not like people just are like, oh, let's eat each other. But yeah, okay.
The Great Irish Famine.
I'm judging just the eating part here. But that's a horrible situation to be in. Any of these situations are. I don't know how people like go through that and then come back to the real world and, you know, continue with their lives.
Famine killed over 1 million people. The Great Irish Famine killed over 1 million people, displaced millions more, and ruined potatoes for everyone emotionally. And just when you thought it couldn't get worse, it totally did. While the famine is remembered for mass starvation, disease, and people boarding ships to America with little more than a prayer and a moldy turnip, there are also horrifying whispers of cannibalism. Yes, in the most desperate corners of Ireland, some accounts say people turned to grave robbing. Not for jewelry, but for leftovers. Cannibalism during the famine became a symbol of utter collapse.
Grave, so you would take corpses? I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, I don't know how I feel about any of this, but that's like, you know, they would already be decomposing. Oh, yikes.
Point where civilization no longer bothers with things like forks, dignity, or laws about eating Kevin. Just like your uncle's fishing stories, however, some of these tales may be exaggerated. Historians debate the prevalence, with some saying it was a rare, tragic occurrence, and others arguing it was mostly anti-Irish propaganda spread by newspapers trying to sell papers and racism. Regardless, the narrative stuck. Victorian authors painted the famine as Gothic horror, complete with skeletal mothers, brain-hungry children, and starving peasants gnawing at their own family tree. Was there really cannibalism? Hard to say, but the sheer level of suffering was so unimaginable, it became easy for people to believe the unthinkable. In the late 1800s, Ethiopia hit a streak of disasters so brutal it felt like
In the late 1800s, so this is not even long ago.
someone drop-kicked the Old Testament straight into East Africa. They called it Kifu Ken, or Evil Days, which is a really gentle way of saying biblical hellscape. It all started when a cattle virus stowed away in Italian imported livestock. Isn't colonialism grand? It wiped out 90% of Ethiopia's cattle. And no cows meant no food, no farming, no transport, no trade, no nothing. Then came droughts, locusts, army worms, cholera, smallpox, and of course, a dash of civil war to really round out the suffering stew. By the end, 1/3 of the population was dead. And yes, in that desperation, cannibalism happened. Back in Europe, readers devoured the reports like true crime newsletters. Ethiopia's suffering became Victorian entertainment, the OG doom scroll. Morbid tales of famine-fed cannibalism were spun into moral parables. Don't sin, eat your gruel, and never trust imported goats. But this wasn't metaphor, it was a man-made disaster, worsened by imperial indifference, poor infrastructure, and zero global aid. Because here's the thing, when systems break, morality doesn't politely wait in line. It crumbles. And it's not because people are evil, it's because hunger doesn't care about ethics. In other words, emergency food systems are important to keep around and properly funded. And while we're on the subject of colonial fallout, let's talk about John Williams. No, not the guy who wrote the Star Wars theme. A British missionary who, along with fellow missionary James Harris, was literally eaten for his sins in 1839. The two men sailed to Erromango Island, part of what is now Vanuatu, armed with Bibles, ego, and absolutely no understanding of boundaries. They were there to save souls, but the locals remembered a very different kind of foreign visit.
Two people?
One that involved European traders abusing and exploiting them. So when John and James came ashore with their sanctified sales pitch, the islanders were like, oh, hell no. We've seen this movie before, and in a move that would horrify the Victorians and deeply satisfy your inner justice gremlin, they totally killed and ate those dudes. Williams' remains were shipped to Samoa like a cursed Amazon return, and his wife later had a memorial built for him. Probably the only tombstone in Britain that doubles as a Yelp warning for tropical islands. Back in Europe, the incident fueled the myth of the Cannibal Islands, giving colonizers the perfect excuse to ramp up civilized.
Isn't still like that one island where you're not supposed to go, where some people went and got attacked? We've watched it in another video as well. Someone went and took Diet Cokes with them to give to the islanders. Diet Cokes, I'm still offended by that. At least take real Coca-Cola. Either way, they say that on that island that might happen too, right? I'm not sure, but I think so. But I would guess it's more than like a ritual than anything else there, since they probably do have good food resources in the ocean and on the island. But I don't know, I wouldn't know, but yeah.
Missions, by which we mean more land grabs and cultural erasure. In 1884, the Mignonette, a yacht sailing from England to Australia, was shipwrecked in the South Atlantic. The four-man crew escaped in a lifeboat, with no food, no water, and no plan except, we got this! After 16 days of baking in the sun and sipping seawater like it was a cocktail, the men were, to put it lightly, not thriving. And so they did what any Victorian maritime horror story demands: they ate the cabin boy. His name was Richard Parker, and he was sick, weak, and 17 years old. He didn't volunteer, but Dudley and Stevens killed him, with Brooks apparently playing the I'm not touching this card. It was survival cannibalism, a long unspoken rule that if things get bad enough, you eat the weakest. Morally horrifying?
This is why you need to be kind to everyone, guys. No, but that's really sad. A 17-year-old boy.
Absolutely, but legally justified? Until then, kinda. But once the men were rescued and returned to England, the courts were like, excuse us, you did what? Thus began the legendary legal case, R v. Dudley and Stevens, the moment British law decided to draw a hard line in the water. Their defense? We had to. It was necessary. The court's response? Necessity is not a defense for murder, my dudes. Dudley and Stevens received a death sentence, but it was quickly commuted to 6 months in prison, which we imagine they were pretty jazzed about. Still, the
What? The death sentence, and from that to 6 months of prison? I mean, there's plenty of fish probably in the ocean that you can try and catch. There's 4 of you. I don't know. I mean, yeah, how would you cook it? I don't know. I don't know how that works. But I don't. I mean, what did you? Yeah, well, you wouldn't cook the human neither, no? So did you? Oh, actually, let's not think about it. But still 6 months in prison. That's a that's a light sentence for this.
The case set a landmark legal precedent that you can't just kill someone because you're hungry. In 1837, the Portuguese schooner Arrogante was caught hauling over 330 enslaved Africans, most of them children, across the Atlantic, despite Portugal officially outlawing the slave trade a year earlier. When the British Navy captured the vessel near Cuba, the freed survivors told a story so grotesque, even hardened abolitionists blinked twice. According to multiple testimonies, the crew of the Arrogante didn't just abuse their captives, they killed one, cooked his flesh, and forced the others to eat it. Oh, and for themselves? The crew allegedly reserved the heart and liver, because nothing says supremacy like eating organ meat. To be clear, this wasn't starvation-induced survival cannibalism. This was terror as a weapon, a show of dominance so dehumanizing, it made the Atlantic smell even worse than usual. The enslaved survivors reported these stories when they...
Oh my god. Look at these kids. No, that makes me really, really sad. Imagine how scared they had to be. Oh, I feel super bad for them.
Reached Jamaica. Their accounts were detailed, consistent, and horrifying. But colonial justice had a simple way of resolving the matter. They deemed the white crew believable, and the African children, well, not so much. The Jamaican authorities did the colonial equivalent of a shrug, and no one was charged. Justice didn't just look the other way. It walked out, locked the door, and lit a cigar. Ironically, throughout the entire slave trade, European colonizers loved to frame Africans as cannibalistic savages. It was a go-to justification for conquest. Look at these people, they need saving. But in the Arrogante case, the script flipped. It was the white crew doing the eating. And
I really want to watch more of like this part of history, but because I haven't watched any, and it's a huge part of my DNA as well, since my people came from Africa to the Republic Dominican, most likely. I mean, at least judging by my DNA, and from Spain and Portugal, since they were the ones bringing them, I guess, and then probably some Portuguese Spanish person went with an enslaved African, and then that's how someone came to be, and that's, yeah. And then here I am. Hello. My mother's part is a little bit more clear. It's just, Europeans, and then they went to Finland, and then they became Finnish. Wow. But yeah, I really want to learn more, but that photo was so heartbreaking. I don't know if I have the guts. But yeah.
suddenly, nobody wanted to talk about it. Historian Manuel Barcia called this an alarming reversal, a moment when the mask slipped, revealing that barbarism wasn't in the so-called uncivilized, but in their captors. Maybe the ship should have been called the Christian White Arrogante. So what do you think? And which of these stories did you find the most disturbing? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some of these other videos from Weird History.
I think all of the last one was definitely the most disturbing one. Obviously, the other ones were kind of survival-ish. I mean, the boat one, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that. I was a 17-year-old boy. It's really sad. But the last one is, imagine being so messed up in the head that first of all, you take people as slaves, you take them on a boat, and then you eat one of them to show dominance. Like, are you okay in the head? I hate that. And then that they didn't even get, anything. No jail sentence, no nothing. Either way, but that was an interesting video. Still, I thought it was more like, of cannibalism being an actual thing in general in the Victorian era, but clearly not. These are more like survival stories, but still interesting. And I hope you guys enjoyed watching it with me, even though it was a bit gruesome. But thank you for joining me for this video. I hope you liked it. Please leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.